programs, and welcome to the latest episode of the Awesome Friday Movie Podcast. My name is Matthew, and I'm here with, as always, Simon. Say hello, Simon.
Hello, everyone. Sorry.
Is that ever not going to make you laugh, is my question?
No, I'm just like, I remembered I blew my Shakespearean English opener last week, and it would be way more appropriate this week, and I didn't have a backup ready. So just hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this week's Awesome Friday podcast. I hope you're well and have watched good stuff, because we've watched good stuff this week, haven't we?
We have. This week we're talking about two different things, a film and a TV series, both now available generally. One is a classic, timeless tale of a power-hungry man who tries to take control of his life with a trail of unthinkable violence, and the other one is Macbeth. It's Peacemaker is the other one, just in case we're not clear. It's James Gunn's HBO Max, or in Canada, Crave streaming series, The Peacemaker, which is a follow-on from The Suicide Squad, which I liked and you didn't, or thought it was fine.
We've talked about Suicide Squad a little bit a couple of weeks ago, where you hit the nail completely on the head, because we were comparing it to Birds of Prey, and I didn't like Birds of Prey that much when it came out, and now I keep rewatching it and love it. And you pointed out that Birds of Prey is kind of made for adults, but The Suicide Squad is made for 14-year-old boys. And I don't mean that, sometimes I like to watch movies that are low swings, but I thought The Suicide Squad was incredibly superficial and kind of annoyingly flippant about everything. And
yeah, that's fair. I thought it was fine.
It's
adequate to the task.
When we talk about Peacemaker, this will become, my opinion on The Suicide Squad will become a lot more relevant, because I was expecting more of that, and boy, is it not.
Yeah, well, let's save that because I think we're going to talk about Macbeth first.
Yes,
and
the Scottish play.
Before we dive too deep in, let's just clarify our credentials a little bit. You are a trained actor and drama instructor with a history of directing and performing Shakespeare. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I don't want to blow my own trumpet. But yes,
well, this is going to be relevant in a second when I point out that I have read them one time.
Trust me, makes us equally qualified.
Yeah.
That's the beauty about Shakespeare, though. The beauty of Shakespeare isn't how much as long as you've read it and understand it, like the amount of training you've had with it to put it on or direct it takes you down a certain path. But if you've just read it and then watched someone's vision of it, Shakespeare plays have this thing where you may know every single word to every single play, and you still don't know what you're going to get when you see a performance of it, because it is so incredibly open to interpretation.
I mean, yeah, that's how you get, the 70s Roman Polanski, Romeo and Juliet, and the 90s Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet, both of which are, one of them is directed by a creep, but they're both good Shakespeare adaptations.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've only read them once, but obviously there's been a million Shakespeare adaptations on film,
and they're all interesting in their own ways. There's only one way you can screw up Shakespeare. Really, there's only one way. And that's if you deliver it as if you are the queen. If you say every line as if you are a royal handmaiden. Is this a girl I see before me? This is incredibly common.
Like with a very received and high pitched By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
When shall we three meet again?
You just ventured into Shatner territory there.
Yeah, but that's the problem. It's incredibly common to see this in British theatre, and I haven't seen any Shakespeare done in Canada at all. But oh no, that's not true. I see Bard on the Beach, and Bard on the Beach for the most part get it right. But Shakespeare wrote his lines for conversational working class people, not for hoity-toity advanced RP delivery. It sounds completely wrong because the music of it is wrong. Don't get me. Okay, let's not get into drama teacher examination of Shakespeare.
No, but there's something to be said about the fact that, like, the accent and vocabulary drift of the United Kingdom, of England in particular, is such that, the way that someone like Denzel Washington speaks is closer to what they were speaking, the way they were speaking, in and around when Shakespeare was alive, than current uh, accented Englishes are now. Uh,
Very true.
and and I also just, I have actually seen a lot of Shakespeare movies, and I find the ones where there's a mix of accents and where the accents are not put on, and I find those ones a lot more compelling, very generally speaking.
Mhm.
And as a lead into what we're about to talk about, I think that maybe Denzel Washington was born to do Shakespeare.
Yeah, who saw that coming?
I mean, everyone probably.
Oh,
He's one of the
I wasn't
greatest.
being I mean, I actually wasn't being facetious for a change because I am not, as you know, I am not the biggest Denzel fan.
Hmm,
I think he's a little one note. Now, the thing about Denzel is that he is a bit, in my mind, he's one note, but that one note is really, really good. Like, he's
yeah.
really, really good at that thing. But maybe I've seen a lot of Denzel movies, so I don't want to say maybe I haven't seen enough, but I've never seen him act like he does in this version of Macbeth. I've seen him do his chin tucked down, talking under like gravitas hundreds and thousands of times, and I've never been. Uh, I've always wanted to see like different things from him, and uh, he blew me away in Macbeth.
Hmm.
He's incredible, and you're absolutely right. His delivery of the lines and his understanding of the lines and his intensity of what's going on is perfect. He totally gets it, and I'm sure. Which Cohen was this? Was this Joel or Ethan?
Interestingly, this is Joel Coen,
Right.
directing a minimalist adaptation of a Shakespeare play for film. And Ethan, it's the first time they haven't worked together. And the reason they're not working together is that Ethan has taken time off filmmaking to focus on theater. So,
Really?
yeah, really, really.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, clearly, Joel has a vision, and the beautiful thing about Shakespeare again is that when someone gets it and has a vision for it, and in this case, it was like this German kind of industrial black and white cinema approach, which is very, very theatrical. It has its roots in theatre. So his vision of Macbeth with the actors he got, with the liberties he took, a lot of liberties with some parts of the play as well, and I'd say 99% of them for me paid off. So when you've got a vision like that is so strong with these actors, it's just an instant classic. It's a very, very, very good version of this, probably my favorite Shakespeare play, actually.
Hmm. Well, just for the few listeners who maybe don't know what happened, so can you why don't you give us a quick rundown on the basic plot of Macbeth,
Okay, well, I'm
which
gonna
is which is a tragedy in 5 acts, right?
the basic thing about Macbeth is that you've got it's a bit of a common thing with Shakespeare, but you've got a guy who quite wants to have a few promotions in his life, and in this case, it's royal or like military promotions through this military hierarchy that's kind of royal as well.
Yeah,
He
he's
wants to
the he's the Thane of Glamis. No,
yeah, at the beginning, he's not. He becomes Glamis and he becomes Cawdor because Cawdor dies and he becomes Glamis. But
right.
he's like a lord of something. And
Yeah, the Thane is a actually I know this because I'm a huge dork, but a Thane is a historical title roughly equivalent to that of an earl in England. Hmm.
oh, there we are, perfect.
And that explains it to, I'm sure, nobody, because nobody knows what an earl is.
But they're in Scotland, of course. So you've got to factor in the Scotland England rivalry, and Macbeth is loyal to his king, but yeah, the king promotes his son ahead of him, and he's been working a long, long time to kind of get that promotion. And the interesting thing, and Denzel plays this perfectly, is Macbeth is not that effective at kind of taking action. Very similar to Hamlet in a few different ways, but he's not that. He gets really angry, but doesn't really do anything about it. So the secret energy of Macbeth comes from his wife, his Lady Macbeth, so brilliantly played by Frances McDormand, who is the voice in his ear who persuades him, now is the time. If you wanna get what you want, you're gonna have to start getting blood on your hands. And she leads him down this path of murder through first enemies and then friends, and this guilt actually consumes Macbeth. And the second half, if you like, the last two acts of Macbeth are all about the guilt of what he's done. He's unable to wash the blood off his hands. There's a mythical element with these like witches, these future seers that he keeps bumping into, and he cannot detach his visions from reality, and basically he goes absolutely crazy at the end, as does his wife.
Yeah,
And
I mean
it's
the guilt consumes both of them, really.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and it's really a tragedy about ambition and guilt, and it's brilliant because it has a really good solid cast, but it's a horror. It's the closest you're going to get to a horror of the time. It's incredibly shocking. The things he does uh, should shock you, and so through his actions, he sort of creates tensions with the ruling classes of England, and then it leads to this war that is not just external but internal as well. He's got it in his head, it's under his skin, and it's, if it's done right, it's this fantastic examination of mental anguish under guilt, under murder, under persuasion, under power. It's brilliant. It's fantastic.
Hmm. And it's a what am I trying to say? It's a play that I don't necessarily feel needs an all-star cast, but when you have one, it's just I think it brings out the best in many performers. I think that you're right that Denzel was sort of mind-blowingly good, and I'm a big fan of Denzel. I like his delivery, I like his cadence, and upon watching this, it feels like everything he's done has been to get to the place where he has that cadence and way of speaking that is so. I mean, I can't imitate it, but the people who can imitate it, right? Like he's got a very
Yeah,
distinct
yeah,
mode of
yeah.
speech, and it turns out that it's perfect for this play, and it's perfect for Shakespearean dialogue. And then you
Mm,
have Frances McDormand, who's just generally amazing. You
mm.
know, the she's I think she's the winningest actor in Oscars history at this point.
Really?
Uh, so I think she's tied for competitive wins for acting, but she has one more for producing. She has four.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Maybe
I'd have to
another
look
one.
that up. I
I,
think
maybe another from this. Is this going to qualify for Oscars, or is it? Did it
it,
have enough to go around?
I believe that it will. It's out on Apple TV Plus now, but it played in Oscar qualifying festivals in like September, October, November, December of 2021.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look this up because I can't remember. I think Katharine Hepburn might have four Oscars as well.
Mm, okay.
Um, but what I was gonna say is that like pretty much literally everyone else who's in this is also like the cast is uniformly good. Um, I stand by my years ago prediction that Corey Hawkins, who plays Macduff in this, is going to be one of the biggest stars on the planet at some point.
What have you
Um,
seen him in before?
he's in I mean Kong Skull Island. He's in Straight Outta Compton. Um, he's in The Heights. He's done a bunch of TV as well. Like he's
Right.
become quite accomplished.
Right.
I think that Harry Melling turns out to maybe have been like the dark horse great actor of the Harry Potter franchise outside of the mains. Like um,
He was in Harry Potter.
Harry Melling, who plays Malcolm, the king's son in Macbeth,
Yeah.
was the cousin of Dudley in the Harry Potter
No
films.
way! I've just googled him. He was Dudley.
Yeah,
Oh
and recently
wow!
he was the bad guy in the Old Guard, and he was in a previous Coen Brothers effort, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Um,
Oh,
and he's been churning out. He was in The Queen's Gambit as well. He was excellent in The Queen's Gambit as one of the love interests slash mildly antagonistic people.
mhm,
Um,
wow.
and what was his name? I mean, Brendan Gleeson is, I really like Brendan Gleeson, but he is also, top form as King Duncan in this. The big
Yeah,
surprise for me is an actor who I haven't really seen in too much stuff, but his name is Alex Hassel,
oh
who plays Ross,
yeah,
and he is really good in the part. And the last thing, and the only thing I can remember seeing him in, was Cowboy Bebop, where he was so dialed up and over the top as the villain as to be one of the things that made that series not work.
right,
So
yeah,
it was nice to see him, being good. You know, it's
yeah.
um. So I mean, yeah, I mean, what can you say about Macbeth, man? Like, it's
But
it's so good, and everyone, and again, I think it brings out the best in basically everyone, and I think that Joel Coen has worked with enough people that you have actors like Stephen Root in a one-off, like a one-scene performance, and it's
mm.
it's amazing.
Well, its reputation as a showcase for actors is deserved, and I think that's why we see a new version every couple of years. I haven't seen the version with Fassbender, but I really want to because I'll be really curious to see what he brings to it, because
Mhm.
it is one of the classic pieces of performance that an actor can really show an incredible versatility, and it tends to be something that people come to after they've done a lot of other things, so a bit more established, because it calls on all this experience you've had. There's so much he goes through, and there's so much he has to show, and the actor has to show that he's not necessarily a villain. He's just been manipulated by a villain, and
Mhm.
um, the
Well, I mean, he's a tyrant on his own by the end. It's,
he by the end, sure, but he can't deal with that. Like a villain would celebrate his tyrannical nature. Like Macbeth can never gets to the point where he can accept that he has done the things he's done.
mhm,
And and on the flip side as well, I always think actually Lady Macbeth is a very difficult bit of casting, because she can't be like an Iago. Like she can't be obviously twisting the words and twisting everything. It's got to be so delicate, but so like a knife, but
mhm.
uh,
Like a
but
scalpel, not a broadsword, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so much of this is the director understanding the text and understanding how to deliver it. And also, Shakespeare is not designed for film; it's designed for a live space in front of people. So it's a very different energy, and it's really hard to capture that. And that's why I think his approach with that very German style of black and white with harsh lighting, with the greys and the grayscale on the monochrome, was so effective, and the forced angles of the witches and the very slight visual effects that were used, really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect segue into what I think might be my favorite thing about the movie is that it seems to me to be a pretty perfect blend of the sensibilities of a stage performance, but with the cinematic intentions of a film.
Yeah,
Um, the sets are. Um, I would argue the sets are actually super impressive in their detail, but also minimalistic to allow the actors to shine. To allow the performances to shine. The Um, camera is often static, and the scenes either uncut or cleverly cut to again allow the performances to shine. Um, but when appropriate, whenever there's a moment where they could be doing something a little more cinematic, and I think a good example of that is when the witches make their potion to that Macbeth then gets to ask questions of. And they stage it instead of being a cauldron, it's a whole room, and
mm,
they're in the rafters, and it's just the whole thing is just so. I don't even
mm.
want to tell anyone about it because I just want them to watch it for themselves. Um,
What's
I do
really
I do wonder why my one like little niggling complaint is that I do sort of wonder why he went with the smaller aspect ratio when it could have
mm,
been full screen, but that's so nitpicky on my part. I don't.
I wonder if he wanted that kind of patho feel, that very old kind of almost flicking projector feel of a square.
I mean,
Um,
maybe. maybe. I mean, or maybe he just wanted a more. It's one thing I think about a lot is I think that a lot of creative people work best when they have some manner of constraint they need to work around. So perhaps restricting the frame forced him to make some choices. I don't know. Like that's. Um, there's lots of things that it could be. I would like to know the answer. I'm just not even complaining. I just want to know the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you not get an interview set up with Joel Coen? Can't you get that sorted out?
I'll work on it. How about that? I'll get him on the podcast. That'd be great.
What was really nice for me is that it wasn't. There were lots of decisions. Like Cohen took a lot of creative license with how he staged this, and one of the ones that really caught me off guard at the beginning, because I've directed the Witcher speech many times, and to have one actress doing all three parts at the beginning, I was like, he doesn't he doesn't get this. Like this isn't right, um, because there is so much importance to there being three of them crossing over, not just the dialogue, but the implications of them being the hands of fate. This very Greek idea of the three of them controlling fate.
Hmm.
And so I, at the beginning, I was like, this isn't going to be a version that I'm going to enjoy if this is already something that I don't agree with. And then okay, it's a tiny little spoiler. It's in the first scene. It's the beginning of the play, but is there triality? I know it's duality. The three of them, the
Hmm.
nature of their three is revealed as a reflection in a puddle, and all
Hmm.
the lights and all the lines get split. And I'm watching in surround sound, and all the words start moving outwards. I was like, "Oh, okay, you did that. You did that for me, didn't you? Like, you
Yeah.
had to tell me that you know what's going on." And I felt that with every decision that he made, save one. There's one moment that really bugs me, but every decision he made, he got the subtext of the play, like the important messages and the all the things that are going on underneath the language. All of his decisions supported that. Like I really loved the as you pointed out, the something wicked this way comes scene with the witches like crows in the rafters, and
Hmm.
the boiling of the potion, and the calling of like the otherworldly elements. It was just spectacular. And the end was really interestingly done, because it should be uncertain, like that I won't say how it was ended,
Hmm.
but there's one line he cut, and it really bothered me, and I thought I'd actually missed it, because you thought he dropped a line that you liked, but you went back and you heard it. So I actually rewatched it to listen for this line, and it's not there. And it
That's
really,
annoying.
and it's
I mean,
right at it's right at the beginning of the play, when the witches like begin, and they say, "Where shall we three meet again? In thunder, sunshine, or in rain?" I'm probably getting this wrong. And hang on, I'm bringing this up because I want to get the exact words.
hmm.
You would have thought I'd remember this by now. So they say, "When shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won." And then the third witch that says, "That will be ere the set of sun." And then they go, "Where the place upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth." So that beginning of that play has so much musicality and rhythm, because I've done it so many times. He just cut the line, "That will be ere the set of sun." And it
Hmm.
was like, do you know what it felt like to me? It's like when you play a vinyl and it skips. It skips one forward. I'm like, but why would you cut that? Because I didn't. Obviously, he cut some things out to make it to keep it under 2 hours, because this is a long play. Uh, why that one line? It takes away so much rhythm. But if that's the only thing that bothered me out of all the cuts he did, out of all the decisions he made, from someone who's really picky about Shakespeare and Macbeth in particular, then I would call that a great success. I would love to just speak to him and say, "Why did you cut? That will be in the set of Sun. Why did you do it?" So
Hmm.
if you get that interview set up, that would be great. Thank you.
I mean, the line that I didn't hear the first time through is actually a super important one that would make the
Mhm.
end not make sense if it wasn't
Yeah.
spoken. And I went back because I got distracted when a cat jumped from the back of our sofa onto my face. Um, So I basically had to go back to here. I just, and I was like, I didn't hear the line. It's got to be there, right? Like, and my wife was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because she's not a Shakespeare. She's a very intelligent person, but she's not a Shakespeare scholar. Um, uh, so yeah, I at the end of the movie, I'm like, okay, I just have to make sure it's there because that would be, and it's like the one line that I actually. It's not even. I don't remember the line. I just remember that it's like the one part of the play that makes the ending make sense, and I remember it.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and look.
Honestly,
Um,
when you said you thought they'd missed it out, I was shocked too, but I was glad to hear it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna. For those of you who've never seen Macbeth, I'm not gonna say what it is. But if someone wants
Mhm.
to DM me on Twitter or something, I'll say which one it is. Because
I talk, sorry. I want to talk about Lady Macduff. So, an
yeah,
actress called Moses Ingram,
yep,
who apparently was also in The Queen's Gambit. I haven't seen her in anything before, and
yeah, she's really good in the Queen's Gambit, actually.
she's, she's only got this one scene. Um, it's a very important scene, but she's only got this one scene in this, and she
I
was
mean,
exceptional. Like
before
really,
we go there, we should probably just admit and just acknowledge the fact that Catherine Hunter as the Three Witches is also
oh
fantastic.
yeah. I mean, what to
Catherine,
say?
she like she's not a huge screen presence, but she is like a long-standing and well-regarded like instructor and mentor at I think both the Royal Shakespeare Society or whatever it's called and the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, I believe. And most of her like IMDb credits are live Shakespeare performances that have been filmed, and
Yeah,
she's very spectacular.
yeah, she's incredibly flexible as well, and they really put that to. It almost could be CGI what she does with her body, but it's not. It's her twisting herself into all kinds of things, shapes, to get that weird mystical quality of the sisters across.
Yeah, you will be excited to know that she has been cast in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Moses Ingram has.
Yeah,
Yes. I'm very excited to learn that. I'm almost as excited as I was when I found out Mary Elizabeth Winstead is in Ahsoka.
yep. Yeah, we should maybe do a Star Wars retrospective episode so we can talk about the stuff that's good and the stuff that is bad, like Boba Fett.
Ooh, are we
Oh,
going with bad for Boba Fett? Did you watch the first one?
this is it's a
Side
conversation for another time. It's a conversation for another time.
Okay, I would happily do a Star Wars retrospective.
You really?
I know this as I turn you to face my Rogue One standee that I took from your store. And my wife, when we moved from our apartment, she's like, "So we can throw this giant Rogue One standee out now." I'm like, "No, no, we can't."
Yeah,
So we actually had to package it and have the delivery people bring it carefully. Uh,
it's amazing.
good.
Um, but
So
yes,
back
that's
to
all very much like Macbeth, which is great.
when do we get to see start like sci-fi Macbeth? I'm sure there's a version like there's bound to be a Star Wars Macbeth somewhere, right?
I mean, yes. I mean, there's about a bazillion different adaptations of Macbeth. I mean, one of the most famous was probably the Akira Kurosawa film Throne of Blood.
Oh,
Is
no, I've never seen that, and I hear good things.
Yeah, it's because it's a great film. Let's just Google very quickly adaptations of Macbeth. The
Do you think
Wikipedia
Macbeth?
entry on Macbeth is extensive.
You sounds like my favorite beginning of. You haven't seen this episode of MacGruber yet, but he writes a speech for someone, and the speech begins with the Merriam Dictionary definition. Like the worst beginning of any speech you can make. We'll talk about MacGruber another time as well because it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm jealous of our American friends who got all of MacGruber on the same day on Peacock in the States,
Mhm.
and we're getting it week by week on Showcase here in Canada. And I would very much like to see all of it, um, but
Mhm.
I don't pirate stuff, so I can't. Adaptations: Throne of Blood, Men of Respect, Scotland, PA, Shakespeare Restored. Yeah, there's no Star Wars version. Star Wars mostly rips off westerns and
Yeah,
samurai films, though, so that makes sense.
yeah. So I would love this to be some kind of Joel Coen personal mission to do more Shakespeare. Like I want to see him do Hamlet next, but I love what he did with the Greek stuff with "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou." So it doesn't have to be another German black and white expressionist like cinema. It can be
I mean,
bluegrass. Why not?
as long as he keeps making movies, then I'm fine with it.
What,
Like, there's
is
no.
this really the first movie he's made without his brother?
It is, yeah.
Did he not do Intolerable Cruelty by himself, or am I imagining that?
Nope. No.
That's the thing
But
about the Coen brothers.
you might be. I mean, there was the thing where, and I don't remember what the last one was. It might have been Intolerable Cruelty. Is that before the Directors Guild of America rules changed, they had to be credited separately. So Joel was credited as director, and Ethan was credited as producer on every film that they made up until the mid late 2000s, when the rules changed, and then they started being credited as the Coen brothers, or Joel and Ethan
Right.
Coen. But their process did not change. Just the way they were credited did. They co-directed and co-produced everything they did to that point.
What I find really interesting about Coen Brothers movies is that there's some of them I genuinely don't like, but even the ones I don't like, they're all good movies. They're
Yeah.
all like distinctive with great stories. I I have a weird situation. Like take Burn After Reading, which openly admits at the end with your Spider-Man Jonah Jameson guy freely admitting that it's about nothing. And what
Yeah.
have we done here?
Yeah. What have we learned? Fucked if I know.
That's how you feel like. And it's like it's literally about nothing, but it worked for Seinfeld. So, but it's still a really uh, um, distinct way of telling a story, and all of their movies are completely distinct ways of telling a story. And you love God, what's the one with young Han Solo in it
Oh,
and
Hail
Ralph?
Caesar. Hail Caesar's
You love Hell
amazing.
Caesar. I didn't get on with Hell Caesar, but I still really appreciated it as a very distinct kind of movie.
So,
I should try that again.
as a person who knows my own taste and has some inkling as to yours, and based on um, other films I know that I've said that I like, that you were like, I didn't really like that, and then when you watch them again years later, you're like, actually, I like this movie. I'm going to say you should watch Hail Caesar again,
Uh,
and try and meet it more on its own terms. Because Hail Caesar is a movie that I feel was really let down is probably too strong of a way to put it, but it was sold in uh, what it was sold incorrectly. Like it was sold as one thing, but it's actually another. And I feel that that threw a lot of people for a loop.
what do you mean? What was it sold as?
It was sold as this like wacky '50s adventure starring George Clooney, and
And what is it?
it's actually like it's it's a story of the head of a movie studio, and every other scene is a scene from a different type of '50s movie, and it's much more of not quite an anthology, but like George Clooney is not even the main character. Like he's Josh Brolin is, and Tilda Swinton plays twin gossip journalists who are competing with one another. And every time the main character, again played by Josh Brolin, like goes onto a soundstage, you get a scene from some '50s style movie. So there's a song and dance number with Channing Tatum called "No Dames," which is hilarious, and there's a very serious drama with Alden Ehrenreich being directed by Rafe Fiennes, which is maybe the funniest scene of the 2010s. Um, there's a water opera starring Scarlett Johansson. Um, there's one of everything, and this the film that George Clooney is shooting is like a swords and sandals epic where he is a Roman general who's converted to Christianity by Jesus Christ, um, and his right hand man is Clancy Brown, and it's
Oh,
just
no.
so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I should retry that. I love Clancy Brown. I should give it another go. Definitely.
Yeah, and just every time, and like George Clooney plays a very You know that like image of an actor from the 50s who being kind of like shallow and vapid and stupid? Like George Clooney plays that incredibly well. um, and there's a visual gag that it might be my favorite visual gag of the entire 2010s as well. It's
Wow.
someone asked me on Twitter. There was a thing going around Twitter like, what are your top three Coen brothers? And the whole point of it was that like you could choose any three, and that's totally valid. But yeah, I put Hail Caesars would be my number two or three at this point. So,
Where's Macbeth in there? Or does that not count as a Coen Brothers?
if we're gonna count it, it would be in the top 10 somewhere. But
Right.
the thing I would acknowledge is that my ranking of the Coen brothers films could probably change day to day
Yeah.
and still be valid.
Well, Oh Brother would be number one, right? In anyone's
Two,
list.
my number two,
What's your number one?
The Big Lebowski.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But also, like, if Hail Caesar's my number three, then where does that leave Fargo and No Country for Old Men?
I
Right?
haven't seen No Country for Old Men,
Ah,
actually.
yeah. So you're allowed to be wrong sometimes. It's
I know. I mean, I can't be wrong. I literally haven't seen it, but I don't like Fargo. Maybe I'm wrong about
you are. Yep, yep, you are.
that. Maybe it was the accent that threw me off.
I was thinking about this today because there's a film that I remember liking when I was young that they did called The Hudsucker Proxy, which
Hmm.
I remember really liking, but I haven't seen it since like the late '90s, so I should probably look
Hmm.
that one up again.
And Barton Fink as well. I haven't seen that. We should maybe
That's
do
an
a Cohen's retrospective.
Yeah, maybe we should do a special episode where we watch and rank the Coen Brothers stuff. Planning. Um. Anyway, well, I mean, on that, so Macbeth is another entry, and I think it's in their filmography, whether you want to count it as a brothers movie or not, and it is an excellent one. And
Yeah.
I hope they get back, they work together again. But if Joel's going to keep making movies of this caliber on his own, then that's also fine.
And if you miss going to the theater, uh, then this is kind of it feels like going to the theater in the same way that Tick Tick Boom was a really good example of when a director knows how to make a musical theater work on screen
Hmm.
because Lin-Manuel Miranda completely nailed that. Interestingly, much better than I've been trying to watch In the Heights and I'm not doing very well because it doesn't get what makes musical theater. I don't think John Cho is. I think he's making a film that's a film instead of a film that's a musical theater. Anyway, that's and
It's a whole other thing.
Macbeth. Yeah. Macbeth is the same deal as Tick Tick Boom in that the director gets how to get the energy of a piece of theater on film, and it feels like going to the theater. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that is accurate.
Okay. Yes.
So,
Okay.
well,
So 2 thumbs up. 5 of all the stars.
oh, 5 stars. Wow. So even if I will give it a four. I'll say it's a four.
I think I gave it a 4 on the site, but it doesn't matter. Like who cares? Watch it.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty thin distinction of whether it's fantastic or amazing. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
let's move on.
shall we move on to
Yeah.
Peacemaker?
What
Uh,
what's this about then? You do the synopsis on this one.
so Peacemaker follows John Cena's character from the Suicide Squad, who is a long-standing DC Comics anti-hero, who very famously in all of the marketing for the Suicide Squad has a great line where he says that he loves peace. And he loves peace so much he doesn't care how many men, women, and children he has to kill to get it. Um, spoiler alert for the Suicide Squad: at the end of the movie, he is crushed by a building, but in a post-credit scene is revealed to have survived. And this story takes place a few years later, and he's recovered, and he's recruited by a sort of subgroup of Amanda Waller's. Amanda Waller being the like leader, the director of the Suicide Squad. He's recruited by a small task force to combat a threat that goes undefined for the first basically 3 episodes. Um, and along for the ride, so he's there, and along for the ride is his sort of supervillain best friend, but not best friend, Vigilante, which is the Adrian Chase version of Vigilante from the comics, along with um, uh, what's her name, Jen Holland's character from the Suicide Squad, whose name is Harcourt, and she's the sort of badass chick on the team. And there's a team leader, and there's a tech guy who's play also in the Suicide Squad. And then there's a new member to the team who is revealed very early on is Amanda Waller's daughter. Um, and hilarity and action ensue. Basically, I don't want to give away too much. This is airing on again HBO Max in the States and Crave in Canada. And the fourth episode dropped this week, and it might be my favorite one of them so far. And I've liked it the whole way through. What do you think?
I'm sorry, is the new recruit established as Amanda Waller's daughter? How did I completely miss that?
I don't know. There was a video call between them uh,
I yeah,
at the
where she
very
said
beginning.
I have to rewatch it. Maybe
Yeah,
this goes to show how much I pay attention. Um, sorry, what was your question? Do I like it?
yeah, yes.
Maybe because I we started watching Peacemaker. I actually didn't know it was coming. I put on Crave lunchtime over work to try and put anything on, and saw it was there. I was like, well, I need to do something quickly because I've got like 25 minutes to watch something. And we'd just been talking about the Suicide Squad, and how I don't feel like rewatching it because there's nothing really there to rewatch, if you know what I mean.
hmm
So I put it on and I was expecting it to be crap, to be honest. I was expecting it to be really banal and um, um, immature and all these things. And
It is
so
immature, to be fair.
it is really immature. Look, the what James Gunn gets really, really right when he gets it right is that balance between pathos and immaturity, like
hmm
the which I don't think he got in the Suicide Squad. I mean, he wasn't really going for it in the Suicide Squad, but first Guardians had it. You love the second Guardians for the deep stuff.
hmm
Um,
That's true.
the thing about Peacemaker is that he's still immature and stupid and this absolute just like thick-headed murderer. But instead of it being just the butt of jokes, it's a bit like Austin Powers. You know, when he wakes up and he's stupid and all the reactions are, you are a complete relic. You don't belong in society anymore. And it's the same thing with Peacemaker. Everyone around him is not entertained or amused by him
hmm
or as stupid as him. Maybe the Suicide Squad, it was just a bunch of people being ridiculous together, so it didn't quite work for me. But here it's him versus like normal people trying to do their job properly, and I find that balance much, much better. And what's really, really interesting is that John Cena is really showing some very, very interesting, delicate, subtle acting.
Yep.
Who thought subtle would be a word to describe John Cena as Peacemaker, but he's clearly got significant mental issues from a very turbulent life. And when he's among people, he's like full of bravado and he's the man that gets things done. But when he's by himself, you see things creeping through that he's really battling to keep back. And you also see he's got this really interesting moral code where he'll kill anyone for peace, but he won't kill someone just because someone else tells him to. He has to believe that it's for peace.
hmm
And yeah, it's all very superficial stuff, but it's uh,
I mean,
it's brilliantly
it's
directed and brilliantly written.
yeah, it's also. I mean, I think calling it superficial is probably doing it a disservice because it's not. I mean,
That's fair.
it's not the deepest of subject matter, but it's not shallow either. Like it's a pretty perfect mid ground of. Um, and I guess the reason I wouldn't go so far as to call it deep is that there's nothing in it that's totally surprising and nothing in it that I haven't seen before. And in fact, there's a moment at the end of episode 4 where there's like a reveal, and I think I saw it coming from at least the beginning of that episode. And there's a moment before where I'm like, oh, so this is what the ending of what this character's last frame of this episode is going to be. But it's one of those shows that's well written and well executed enough that even though you're watching stuff you've definitely seen before, you don't care because it's so well done.
It is really
It's
well
like
done.
it's a really well executed version of what it is.
Just,
And
just
and
so
John
you,
Cena, I mean, it's on the one. it's sort of a double-edged sword, but in a good way, where in the moments where he needs to be sort of tragic and pathetic, he's amazing. And also in the moments where he needs to be full of bravado, he's clearly having the time of his life.
Yeah, he really is.
Um, and it's so well executed. The balance between those things is so well executed.
Yeah, yeah. I did not see the twist coming, but listeners, you should know something, and that you'll go to watch it. If you ever go to watch a movie with Matt, the first character will walk on and say one word, and Matt will go, "Oh right, okay, so he's him, and he's him, and he's going to twist at this point, and that person in the background is going to do this, and he'll be right about everything." Whereas on the flip side, it's me completely oblivious until the twist drops, and then you'll hear a "what."
Yeah.
So I didn't see the twist coming at all. Uh,
To be fair, I don't believe that the nature of that twist has been fully revealed, but I don't want to get into spoilers. We'll talk after.
yeah, no,
But
there's no need to.
yeah, I mean,
I
I could take a side note, a sidebar, and just ruin every mystery movie for you. You ready for that?
please don't.
Yeah. So when you're watching a mystery film, and there's a protagonist played by a famous actor, and there's a number of supporting characters played by B, C, B, and A level actors, and you're trying to figure out who the bad guy is and who the red herrings are. The way to figure out who the bad guy is very early on is to recognize who the most famous person is who has the least to do with the plot in the first two acts. That's the bad guy.
Right.
97% of the time.
How very Scooby Doo of you.
Yeah.
Watch out for that. That'll be
Yeah.
good. I really like how Peacemaker's written as an ensemble with really strong, diverse characters, and like who's the actress that's his girlfriend that I didn't know was his girlfriend, Jennifer Holland.
Oh, Jen
Jennifer
Holland,
Holland.
yeah, she's been James Gunn's partner since 2015 or so. I think it's right around the same time as the first Guardians.
Right. She's great in this. Like she's found a balance between she's this kick-ass uh like agent who will break your arm if you even talk to her in a bar, but she has got some delicate moments as well. But in the last episode, the person I was most impressed with is a guy called Freddie Stromer, who plays Peacemaker's
Plays,
best friend, Vigilante.
yeah, he was really good.
And he's just been on the periphery until the last episode where he has a moment that I'm not going to spoil, but a in typical like James Gunn is a very good writer of dialogue, and
Hmm.
he's a very good writer of dialogue that you will remember, and almost Tarantino-esque in that way. And he's very good at giving people moments, and Freddie Stromer has a brilliantly written moment which he delivers brilliantly as an actor. And it's one of those like moments where script and actor comes together like perfectly. You know the part I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Well, actually, I was going to ask, do you mean the one of those in episode 3 or the one of those in episode 4? Because he has one
Uh,
in each.
which one? Which was? What does he have in episode 3?
I don't want to spoil it for.
Oh, the fight. Oh, yeah. No, I'm talking about. Um, let's go around the table and talk about
Oh yeah. I know. Yeah, that was
what's
a good. That was a
people's
good scene.
addition to society. I'll start. Like that whole section was just glorious because there's not any kind of moment of hesitancy from him at all.
Yeah, it's funny because uh, I feel like James Gunn is now what we all wanted Joss Whedon to continue to be, what we all hoped he was, that he turned out
Mm,
to not be, and that he
yeah,
seems like a decent guy in a loving relationship who loves to write and loves to tell stories and isn't a prick, you know. And even though
people.
internet trolls managed to get him fired from Disney a few years ago, and it turned out that like yeah. He was a dick in the past, and he learned and grew, and we all forgave him for it because he's a good person at heart. I think he's like the new. Again, he's what we all hoped Joss Whedon was.
Yeah, and there's very few director writers who can get an ensemble right, and unfortunately, Whedon was very very much one of them. But James Gunn definitely has that ability too. Um,
Yeah.
I think the difference with James Gunn is that I think perhaps the overall tone of his output sometimes doesn't work for me. Like I don't. We've talked about the Suicide Squad. I don't. We don't need to go into detail. Different opinions on Guardians of the Galaxy 2. But I think when it works, when he finds the right balance and the right tone and the right script and the right sort of characters, it's it's like Whedon at his best. It's that beautiful Buffy moment of everyone being an equal part in the machine and the machine just playing beautifully.
Well, I think the key difference is that uh, when Gunn's balance doesn't work, it's because he tips back towards being a little too juvenile.
Hmm.
And I think the difference with Whedon was that when his balance didn't work, he tipped towards being too clever by half, which comes off
Yeah,
as smug.
yeah, definitely.
Which makes sense when you learn what a smug prick he is in real life.
It really is. And it's
Um,
kind of upsetting as well, just while we finish up talking about Whedon, is that all the actors that he worked with at the time, where it really felt when you watch Buffy, it felt like this was a dream ensemble, a dream cast. Everyone liked each other. Everyone must be the like best friends and going to work. Can you imagine working on Buffy every day? So knowing now that Michelle Trachtenberg was her rule was never be in the room with Joss alone, and then she was how old was she in Buffy? Like
it doesn't matter. Too young. The answer is she was
there's no
too young.
way she was legal on any level. And for her to, as a young actress, to have that rule, Chris Carpenter has many things to say about him, and no one's been complimentary about working with him. And it just kind of dulls that image, that feeling of Buffy, and it's also a testament to how well the actors worked to sort of hide all what was going on behind the scenes to make it look like it was this amazing, like happy ensemble.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I struggle with um, kind of frequently, actually. We watched the LA Confidential in December, which is a film that I love and I genuinely believe is one of the best films of the 2000s. But Kevin Spacey's in it, and I have a hard time watching Kevin Spacey now. Um, and it's not fair because filmmaking is very much a collaborative effort, and to have one actor, I try not to let it be that one actor would let me not watch a thing, but it is kind of hard to watch when it's,
Yeah.
and every once in a while I did think about rewatching Buffy or rewatching Angel, which is a show that I know I'm in the minority, but I liked a lot. Um, and I've thought a lot about rewatching Firefly, which is a show that I adored. And when I
Yeah.
say adored, I mean pre-social media, there was a thing called meetup groups, and I was in the local Vancouver Firefly meetup group, and we like had Firefly parties, and we got invited to an early test screening of Serenity, and I loved I loved that show. And between Joss Whedon being revealed to be a dick and Adam Baldwin being revealed to be a right-wing tool, I just can't quite get there to watch it again, which is very
Yeah.
upsetting to me. But the upside
No.
the upside of this is that the internet brought up James Gunn's past, and we were all like, yeah, he was a dick, but he grew, and he's not a dick anymore. He apologized. He took ownership for the things you're accusing him of years ago, instead of just
Mm,
deflecting them off onto the people around him, which is what Whedon continues to do. So
mm,
it's like I say, this is why I think it's an interesting comparison, that I think that Gunn is what we all wanted Whedon to be.
yeah.
Yeah,
I just enjoy your phrasing that he was a dick, but he grew. Are we still doing phrasing?
yeah.
I hope so. And the nice thing about Garen as well is that he does a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and there's lots of actors who talk very, very favorably about working with him, about the freedom to improvise, but the script's there, the work ethic's there, and he does sound like a really supportive, like exciting director for actors.
Hmm.
Like there's no one really says anything nasty about him, and in the current climate, I don't think people would not say anything. Like
Yeah.
if the what people, and then in contrast, if you go back to Whedon, the cast of Justice League talking about their experience now, like these are established actors like Ben Affleck and even Gal Gadot at that time, who had some, even then had enough clout, talking about uh, the experience of working with this director and even how they felt threatened in their careers. And Affleck said it's the low point of his whole like decade,
Hmm.
like, and he'll never ever do it again. It's you've got to be a certain kind of dick to make established actors feel like that, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think Avengers was a fluke, the first Avengers? Because it's pretty much a perfect movie, and everyone's like on the top form in it, and the for years it's been heralded as like it's the Whedon magic. I mean, that's why he was brought back for so many other things. And Age of Ultron isn't the same thing. So, do you do you think Avengers worked because it was planned that way, or it just kind of turned out that way?
This is a complicated question. So I think that Whedon, at his height, is a very good writer and writer anyway of an ensemble, and I think that the Avengers is one of the high points of his career for that. I think it's a. I think that the villain. I think that the resolution of the conflict is a little bit underwritten, but I think it's otherwise basically. I don't want to say perfectly written, but I think it's a very well written story.
Hmm.
A very excellent example of exactly what it is. Um, and I think that it has other problems. I think I don't know what I can't speak to how he was on the set of Avengers, but certainly that movie had other factors holding it back. Number one among those being, the guy who is then in charge of Marvel Studios, a guy called Ike Perlmutter, who refused to let them have any other female characters because he's a sexist piece of shit. Who was eventually removed from Marvel Studios and later from Marvel Comics as well in favor of Kevin Feige. And it's not a coincidence that the first movie that Feige was fully in control of, being Thor Ragnarok, is a big, bright, omnisexual, funny thing. Very, very, to use a word that I kind of hate, very woke and very, to dive a little more deeply into themes of things like colonialization and colonialism and uh, and, and anyway, so there was other problems as well. And I'm not trying to minimize the Whedon of it all, but I think that Avengers was made at his height. And honestly, I really like Avengers: Age of Ultron, and I think that the problems with that are that he made a 3-hour movie they forced him to cut down to two. I would very much like to see the longer version of that. Um, I know for a fact they shot a lot of stuff that would have made a lot of it make more sense, but they basically said, "Here's your time limit, stick within it," and he had to cut a ton of stuff out. Does any of that excuse him being a piece of shit? No, like not at all. And even the Avengers movies that he made, again, both of which I like, one of which I love, I have a hard time coming back to. And again, filmmaking is a collaborative art, and it sucks that my willingness to rewatch the film is colored at all by the fact that the director's a piece of shit. Especially
Yeah,
when, and I'll be the first to admit, uh, Kubrick was a piece of shit too, and I let that shit slide all the time. A different kind of piece of shit, I think. Um,
yeah,
so I mean, the level to which a person is a piece of shit does have an effect, and there's there's a reason I won't watch The Professional again, and I have a hard I have watched The Fifth Element again, but I have a hard time watching it based on um, the director of those films being
mm,
basically a rapist. Like, so it's tough. The whole thing is tough, and I don't have the answers. And maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'm not the person really to speak about them. We should just let the people who are the victims to tell their story, and we should believe them.
Yeah.
But it's the whole thing sucks on every level. Every level.
So
That was that was a bit rambly, and
no, no, not
didn't
at
really
all.
answer the question. But
Well,
that's
I think it did
it's.
because I think it answered the question perfectly well. Like I agree with you totally. It's so difficult. Some of my favorite movies have turned out to be directed by terrible people, and how do you resolve that? And but going back to what you're saying, I think it's a very very astute to say that James Gunn has the potential of being Whedon and more. I think because he's got the ethic and he's got the ability and he's got the script. And Peacemaker's been a revelation for me because I after the Suicide Squad, I was wondering if when Gunn comes back and does Guardians 3, like what state is that going to be in? Is it going to be just more like schlock and boom and crap? But Peacemaker's made me remember that he can do the balance. He can do fantastic action, brilliant funny script, and deep moments as well. It makes me really excited for Guardians 3 actually,
Mhm. And
which I'm
the
guessing
and the
next movie.
Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which he's also doing.
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
It's a Disney Plus special that is in continuity with Guardians 1 and 2 and 3 that's coming this year on Disney Plus.
Is it another like Life Day story? It's
I
bound to
mean,
be like
we don't know. It's a year away.
there's no way that's been titled like holiday special and it's not going to riff on the Star Wars holiday special and
Oh
say
no, 1,000%.
yeah.
But I'm very excited by the idea of it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
And
they'll go back to Earth at Christmas for Peter Quill. For that's their set. That's a good setup.
how do you feel about Chris Pratt? Are you able to watch Chris Pratt without feelings of rage?
I don't know. It's, he's just religious. He's just religious, right? He's not a rapist or an or
That's
an
true.
or an abuser. You
That's
know,
true.
he's just religious. It's a different, and also he's kind of omnipresent. It's hard to
Mhm.
not see him. I
Mhm.
don't, for whatever reason, and maybe I'm not as well versed in his controversies, but I don't have as much problem with Chris Pratt as some of the other people we've talked about so far tonight.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
So,
if anything, I have a problem with Chris Pratt, and then I think he's a little one note, which I don't think is entirely his own fault. But they keep casting him to be that kind of character in the same way that Ryan Reynolds went through a period where they were like, "You've got a square jaw and a good sense of comic timing. Let's put you in 16 romantic comedies that are all exactly the same."
yes.
And then once he found his Deadpool, they're still casting him to be Deadpool every time now, but it works because he's found
Mhm.
his niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Good. Well, so I would say Peacemaker is highly recommended, even if you hated the Suicide Squad, and it sounds like your idea of hell. He is a character to which other people react to, and he turns out John Cena knows how to act, and by all accounts knows how to improvise as well. So
yeah,
um, recommended.
my biggest complaint about both Macbeth um, and the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker at this point is that they're both on streaming services that not everybody has, and I think they would be well deserved to be seen by wider audiences. To be fair,
Yeah,
they're on very big streaming services, but
yeah.
not everyone in Canada has Crave, and not everyone anywhere has Apple TV Plus. So,
Isn't that the strategy though? Is to make stuff that you make people finally subscribe to your service. It's not about
oh, yeah.
single.
Eventually, someone's going to come up with a great idea of forming a single company that allows you to pay one body to subscribe to multiple streaming services, and we're going to call it cable.
It
you
does
know,
amuse me how we've gone full
except
circle back.
except it'll be spelled like CABL. And
No, it'll just be CBL. Come on, vowels are so last year.
yeah, and probably they'll release an NFT or something, and it's
Oh God! Ah,
yeah.
ah. They will. Someone's already planning that, definitely.
Yeah.
Good. So what have you got coming up for the next week? What's in your life? What are you watching?
I don't know what's coming up. I will be covering. I've been invited to cover the Slamdance Film Festival, which is a festival of independent cinema based out of actually this basically the same place that Sundance happens. And it happens. Sundance is on right now, and I was not invited to participate. And Slamdance basically starts right after it ends. So
Mhm.
I will hopefully be watching a bunch of interesting independent cinema. Um, and I think we have like a plan for next week. I thought, do we maybe have a plan for next week?
Yes. Yes, we
Um,
do. Once I load my notes app, I'll be able to tell you what that plan is.
yeah. I don't. There's a thing I've seen. I don't know if the embargo has technically dropped, so I can't say if I've seen it. But there's a thing that I've seen that I would like. I know you have access to, and I'd like you to watch because I think it's
Oh,
quite fun.
yeah,
Um,
okay.
so if you can get that done in time for next week's
Yeah,
episode,
I can do that. How many episodes is that?
8. It's 8 episodes.
Are there an hour each?
They're like like 45 to an hour each. But
Okay.
I'd be interested to see you just slam through as many of
Yeah,
them as you can.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I don't know. I don't know. I have it's a busy.
You're watching Venom 2 at some point, which I'm particularly jealous about.
I'm watching that tonight after I make dinner. This is we're recording on Saturday for release on Sunday, and my plan is to watch that after dinner.
I want feedback during and after the movie.
Well, no
Just
promises,
single word.
but we'll see.
Single word. Yeah, not during. Don't look at your phone during the movie. But I just want one word. I want a one word review afterwards.
Well, for context, you liked Venom, and I thought it was a entertaining but terrible movie. Um,
I did love it.
so my hope is that it's terrible but entertaining. But I fully expect it to be terrible.
Yeah. I mean, Venom was definitely in my sweet spot of movies. Tom Hardy knew what he was doing, and he gave me what I wanted, and I'm sure the sequel is more of the same.
Yeah, hopefully.
Good. Well,
Good.
enjoy that.
Good.
Do you have any final messages for our beautiful listeners?
I mean, as always, would like to take this time to thank everyone for listening. Um, no matter what else you're doing, we do appreciate that the most. If you would like to support us a little more directly, whatever podcasting platform you're listening to this on, if you could give us a subscribe or follow or a 5-star review or a 5-star review, those things help immeasurably. I don't know if I said 5-star review, but that would be amazing. Um, we also have a Patreon, which you can find linked in the show notes and on the website. Um, and yeah, I mean, and thank you. I haven't really do this, but before, but thank you to everyone who is a patron. Um, you guys are pretty much the reason that we're still doing this at this point. I mean, we love doing this; it's fun. But you patrons, as they say on Sesame Street, make it possible. Your support makes it possible. So thank you. Thank you for listening. What am I forgetting? We should probably add a First Nations land acknowledgement at some point. We are in Canada, in Vancouver. It is the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. So there you go. What do you have
I
coming
don't
up?
feel I can talk about. I have a British accent. Like this isn't going to go well if I'm like. It's better coming from you.
Yeah,
I've got some historical things going on.
yeah. As long as we're acknowledging our past. But anyway, on that
Sorry.
bombshell, we should sign off. Thank you for listening. We do have to get back to our real lives, but we will
Yep.
see you in a week.
Take care. We love you. Bye.
Bye.